Thank you for tuning in to my presentation. My name is Michaela Bledsoe, and for assignment 3, looking at personnel as a finance issue in higher education, I will be evaluating University of Texas at Arlington, otherwise known as UTA. Let's get started. So on this slide, we have an overview of the different topics that we'll cover as we analyze this issue. And so we're going to start with the university itself and then transition into the policies and then select a policy to evaluate. And then we're going to look at some data and some literature to help explain the policy in relation to this specific institution. So let's get to know the university itself. And so UTA is a Carnegie Research 1 institution, which means that they are very active in their research and published articles and things such as that. Their vision statement is to have an impact on the communities by developing the talents of the students and innovating and discovering and fostering a culture of engagement at their campus. The university is accredited and they currently offer baccalaureate, master's, and doctoral degrees. Their student body is populated from students from almost every state in the United States and from over 100 countries from their international student population. During their tenure as an institution, they have awarded more than 250,000 degrees, and they are rated one of the most ethnically diverse campuses in the United States. And right now, they are classified as a Hispanic serving institution, as well as an Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institutional as well. From their human resource standpoint, they do have a preference in employing veterans or spouses of veterans or former foster care children as long as they're under the age of 25. They do try to recruit and onboard talented and diverse workforce, and they try to offer competitive compensation to retain their talented individuals and to attract more to their university. And so within their HR system, they have onboarding, employee relations, international employment, onboarding for those, belonging and engagement, benefits, leadership and talent development, records and data administration, compensation, Hispanic serving institutions initiatives, and leave services, as well as talent acquisition. So now let's take a look at UTA and HR specifically in context with their student body and their faculty and staff. The university is home to more than 41,000 students, 1,500 faculty, and 2,500 staff members. Their campus spans 420 acres and has over 100 buildings and facilities for the students and faculty to learn and teach in. They are in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and they have different innovative educational opportunities available to their students. For all of those students, they have 180 plus degree programs that they currently offer, and each year they award more than 13,000 degrees. Some of the colleges and schools they have within the university include architecture, planning and public affairs, business, education, engineering, honors college, liberal arts, nursing and health innovation, science, and social work. Specifically in their human resources department, they have 68 employees. They currently have a UTA People and Culture survey that they send out. They have a specific department dedicated to employee relations, and they also offer as an incentive employee tuition affordability program that can help pay for them to study at their university that they teach in. And they also have a lot of initiatives for employee recognition. So now let's see which policies HR currently works with. From the UTA Conduct Guide, employees are expected to be aware of and to perform their duties in compliance with the policies of UTA. Some of their policies that try to target effective management of personnel include recruitment, training, hiring, performance evaluation, and employee benefits. They try to cover areas such as faculty appointments, tenure, performance reviews, and leave benefits. They emphasize fairness, transparency, and compliance with legal requirements. Here are a few of the policies that specifically relate to personnel management. A full list of the policies offered at UTA can be found in the link provided in the bottom right-hand corner. From those list of policies, we are specifically going to be looking at the annual review and comprehensive periodic evaluation of tenured faculty positions. And in this policy, in the screen here, we're just looking at the different sections within this 18-page document, but we'll be going over the brief overview in the next slide. Some of the key milestones in this policy include tenure protection and academic freedom. And so ensuring tenure and protecting the intellectual debate is very important to this policy. They also stress the annual review and evaluation, so making it a mandate to have a frequent review for these faculty performance positions. They also provide the performance assessment, what kind of criteria they use to assess all teaching, research, and service activities. They also talk about how they support and develop those faculty members during their development process and goal setting opportunities. They stress diversity and equity, which promotes fairness, diversity, and inclusion in all evaluations. And they also specifically touch on the transparency and oversight. So they want to make sure this process is clear from the policy to the execution. So now that we've introduced the policy, let's evaluate it in context to this specific university. Direct quote from this policy states, without freedom to question, there could be no freedom to learn. And so this policy ensures tenure protection for the faculty members at UTA. It really stresses academic freedom and outlines the reviews and comprehensive evaluations that go into assessing each faculty member and what kind of criteria they use very clearly. It also really stresses diversity and equity, making sure that it's transparent, and that there's guidance for professional development and oversight to ensure fairness and accountability for all members within the UTA system. But this policy directly focuses on tenured faculty. Some of the strengths for this specific policy include clear criteria, and so it's very transparent and consistent in how they do their evaluations and how they assess faculty performance. There's also a big stress on academic integrity, and so this protects the freedoms, and it also strengthens the university's reputation in scholarly pursuits, which is extremely important since it is a Tier 1 research institution. There is also a very structured process here, mandating that there are annual reviews and periodic evaluations, means that there is a systematic approach to personnel management, which helps with accountability and improvement. At the same time, there are some weaknesses to this policy. There's not a whole lot of flexibility in accommodating individual differences or unique circumstances, and so we'll talk more about this in our literature review section. There's also limited employee involvement. Okay, so the policy outlines the evaluation process, but it doesn't specifically state how it may involve the faculty and staff in the decision making or policy development, which reduces ownership and engagement. There's also an issue with the diversity implementation. There is a focus on promoting diversity and equity, but there doesn't have a lot of strategy specifically outlined how they intend to implement this and the strategies and the initiatives they need to make these practices in place. So evaluating how effective this specific policy is, there is tremendous support for academic freedom, and this is crucial for faculty members, ensuring that they can engage in intellectual debate and critical analysis, which is very important for the work they do for scholarly endeavors. Publishing research articles, attending research conferences, and helping graduate students with their research as well. Also, in the assessment of how effective it is a very structured process. And so we are able to continue to contribute to the management by setting clear expectations and having everyone held accountable to meeting those expectations. There also is some guidance for development. So this policy focuses on providing guidance for faculty through the annual reviews to help them enhance their performance and also promote their professional growth. So they invest in their faculty members. And there is promotion for diversity and equity, and they are promoting fairness, diversity, and inclusions within their evaluations. And this policy addresses the need for a diverse faculty and staff for the university itself. And this contributes to a positive, balanced work environment. Let's analyze some data in order to help us contextualize the policy in relation to the University of Texas of Arlington. In the report we're about to evaluate, in 2022, the total turnover rate for UTA was at 16.8%, which is an increase from previous years. UTA's personnel management relies on data such as full-time numbers, turnover rates, salaries and benefits, and demographic data to inform policy decisions. By analyzing this data, UTA can identify trends, address challenges, and enhance management strategies to support the employees and students to meet the university objectives. As we analyze the data from this specific report, we see that we have an increase in turnover rates in every section of employment here from the previous year. For our administrators, we have an increase in 5.1% in turnover rates. For our faculty members, an increase in 1.5%. Our staff, an increase of 9.4%, and overall an increase in 6.4% from previous years. Also, as we look at the separations, we see that there is an increase in involuntary separations from the previous year in both the faculty and staff separations, but we still see that there is a considerable amount of voluntary separations increase from the previous year in all areas of employment here. And then we also see some people retiring, but not nearly as much as the ones who are either voluntarily or involuntarily separating. Looking at the same report, we see some trends in the salaries, benefits, and merits for the UTA professionals. And so we see from the previous year, our administrator salary actually decreased very slightly, while our staff salary increased very slightly. Looking at faculty salaries specifically, we see that there is a slight decrease from the full-time professor, a very slight increase for the associate professor, and a very slight increase for the assistant professor salaries as well. And if we look down at the number of merits increase, it was not clear how often they award merits. But we see from the previous years, there's a huge spike, but there seems to be an increase in the different merits for each of those three different types of employees classifications. And we see that at UTA, 40.9% of faculty has a teacher responsibility is tenured or tenured track. And we see that the university used appropriated funds to pay for the merits that they were awarded. Looking at the same report, we can see some demographic data. If we look at veteran employment, the goal is 20%. However, statewide, the veteran employment rate is well beneath that, and the institution is well beneath the statewide current employment as well. So there's a lot of room for growth there. If we look at age breakdowns, we see that administrators actually have a more higher age portfolio profile than our staff tends to hire more younger profile. If we look at the gender breakdown between the different types of employees, we see our administrators and our staffs lean more female dominated, where our faculty is more evenly distributed. And then if we look at the ethnicity breakdown between the different types of employees, we see that the white ethnicity is far exceeding of any of the other ethnicities. It's in all of the administrator, faculty, and staff demographics. So after reviewing the policy and the data, let's look at some of the challenges and opportunities for this institution. So as we start looking at our data and policy in context with some of the research, literature, and academic scholarly articles that we'll be introducing in the couple slides, we can start seeing how effective it is in actually managing the personnel. And so as we see from one of the articles, it talked about that there is a relationship between evaluations and turnover intention, and that is mediated by intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So this is something, a new avenue that HR professionals can sort of monitor, manage, and evaluate. And we also see that there are some issues of merit. We talked about some merit in the data here, and they are completely separated from issues of equity. And so it's difficult for some of the reviewers to evaluate the quality of one faculty member versus another because there's so many differences in roles and responsibilities, and they all tend to look unique in position. And so there is some complexity in the merit awarding process. So we're going to be evaluating those in the next few slides here. So reviewing some of the data in context with some of the information from scholarly articles that we'll introduce in a second, we see that there was an increase in merit allocation. Administrators saw 11% increase from the previous year in which they awarded merits, faculty 10% increase, staff 5% increase, and in total a 6.2% increase. It is important to note that the direct previous year they did not offer any merits, and so we are having to compare it to the years previously. And so this policy does offer a way to evaluate and then administer merits based on performance, and so this helps recognize quality professionals. There also seems to be some demographic trends. We see an aging trend among staff from all previous years in total. And so there's not really a policy in place in this evaluation to address any of the succession planning or how to attract a younger talent. And specifically, we're looking at turnover rate. So there is a staff turnover rate that has increased to 23.7%, admin and faculty less so, which indicates some gaps in retention strategies and policy annual reviews. And so these are some of the issues and challenges that this policy has not yet addressed. So since we identified that demographic disparities are in place. With the policy, we can look to see if we can better align performance assessments to match our diversity metrics, and then identifying and mitigating disparities in our turnover rates specifically to certain demographic groups. I think looking at the policy through this lens may help the university address some of those personnel issues. Also, as far as enhancing policy, there needs to be something in place to extend to performance improvement initiatives. And so there needs to be a way to correlate this policy with any initiatives the university wants to put in place. There also may need to be areas for mentoring or professional development programs, more specifically to the demographics that we see experiencing high turnover rates. And also, this policy plays a significant role in merit awarding decisions. And so there may need to be more standardization in how different departments set up their criteria to award those merits. As we'll talk about in research later on, there tends to be a lot of diversity in professor and staff requirements. And so sometimes the metrics may not be equitable to all of those employees. And so these are areas that we're going to analyze through research and academic literature in those next couple of slides. So, as we start contextualizing our data and policy in context with the academic literature available, we look at this study that looked at the impact of evaluations on job satisfaction and turnover in higher education among staff. And so, according to their research, they actually experienced a positive influence of evaluations on intrinsic motivation, which means that their employees had better job satisfaction and were less likely to voluntarily separate. There was, however, no significant link between self-evaluations and extrinsic motivation. And so there may be further research available to see how well the policies, administrator and peer evaluations and student evaluations might do more for extrinsic motivation, but we may need to focus specifically on intrinsic motivation to improve job satisfaction. They also found that there was no direct positive impact of evaluations on job satisfaction. And we actually see that if individuals scored lower on evaluations, they were more likely to consider leaving their jobs. And so this may help explain the turnover rates or voluntary separations. And this would even help explain the voluntary separations. Furthermore, in this study that looked at teacher evaluation and teacher turnover in equilibrium, they noticed that there was 46% of departing teachers actually were rated ineffective, minimally effective, or developing on their evaluations. And so highly effective teachers, when they exit, it can actually lead in a decline to student learning because they're often replaced with less effective teachers. Additionally, 25% of highly effective teachers had concerns about how the evaluations were able to accurately reflect their effectiveness, and so there was doubt in the system. And so their evaluation systems more deliberately could be used to retain high-performing teachers and to provide them with increased professional development opportunities and directly communicate with them about their value to help retain them more and decrease the turnover of those highly effective teachers. Furthermore, in this peer-reviewed book that looked at the best practices for faculty evaluation for academic leaders, it noticed that there tends to be small merit pools in some of the institutions, which might hinder merit increases being meaningful to the faculty, and so there might be some dissatisfaction occurring there. There also tends to be a disparity in how merit is increased and how it actually demotivates highly effective and average faculty members as they're not getting compensated based appropriately and proportionally to their efforts involved. And so faculty morale tends to suffer, and it tends to do more harm than good, undermining the merit pool's purpose. And so evaluating faculty also is a challenge because all of the faculty members tend to have diverse roles and responsibilities. And so it comes into question, how do I equitably evaluate them to equitably and fairly distribute these merit values? And so separate merit and equity needs to be used to promote fairness. And evaluating teachers based on impact and not popularity is essential. Therefore, establishing clear evaluation criteria and consult standard sources. And this is very important because the UTA's policy clearly states their criteria that is used before they actually do any evaluation process. And so in terms of this academic literature is doing a great job in being a highly effective source of evaluating performance. So knowing everything we've discussed, let's synthesize the institutional information that we have now discovered. So, this institution strongly believes in the importance of tenure. They state that tenure is essential, not just for the protection of individual faculty members, but as an assurance to society that the pursuit of truth and knowledge is their first priority. And so, their HR policies, like their annual review and comprehensive periodic evaluation of tenured faculty policy, the one that we just evaluated, combined with other initiatives that they're ongoingly implementing, such as their employee tuition affordability program, can help address turnover and retention issues. Unique aspects of UTA's diversity commitment and tenure protection for academic freedom help manage the diverse workforce and ensure legal compliance for this department and institution at large. This policy, in conjunction with some of their other policies at UTA, does a lot of good for the faculty, staff, and administrative and students as well. And so this specific policy that we've been reviewing promotes diversity and inclusion, which fits into their overall commitment to fairness and equity for their student and workforce populations. The policy also supports the academic freedom and tenure protection for their members, and this reflects UTA's dedication to diverse student populations as well as their workforce populations. And they are, again, classified as a Hispanic serving institution as well as an Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institution. And this helps, again, foster that inclusive academic environment that they are striving for. And so, combining this policy with initiatives like the UTA People and Culture Survey that they send out to their faculty and staff and administrative at the end of these school years, as well as their employee tuition affordability program, promote transparency, employee engagement, and helps reinvest into the people that are helping them run their institution. And this is all in line with UTA's comprehensive HR practice, and once again, the mission and the vision statement for the university as a whole. As UTA's student population and workforce population continue to grow and diversify, there are some challenges that come with personnel management. For one, having effective communication and support are important for their large and diverse workforce. It's also important to balance student growth in proportion with faculty and staff recruitment to continue to have that good ratio of faculty to students or staff to student body populations. And this is very important for the academic success for the university. It's also important to have cultural sensitivity in their HR practices since they are meeting the needs of a diverse group of students and faculty members as well as staff members. And there needs to be continuous improvement in the compliance for policies that are necessary to navigate HR complexities in an ever-evolving and competitive environment. Thank you for joining me as we look at personnel as a finance issue in higher education for the University of Texas at Arlington. If you're interested in any of the resources that we used throughout this presentation, you can find them located in the bottom right-hand corner of each slide in which they correlate with. Thank you once again. Have a great day.